So today I'm gonna play Roblox while it's 70% So today I'm gonna play all the new maps. Just 3 new maps. Yeah, I think one without all new maps. Yes, I got this map, so let's go. This is my loadout, but I'm pretty good with the assault rifle. I'm a little bit sick. You're lucky. Whoa. Whoa. What? Okay. I'm pretty good at the insect one. Oops. Let me step. Okay. Then I'll play. Boss. I'm copying everything. See, I play like that. What? Whoa! Whoa! I was reloading. This is I saw this No. But I really have to go to. You know that gunshot the one right there? Oh, don't worry who just went. That's my friend from school. What?
I thought I'm not
Hi, but I'm really
Let's get back.
Hi.
My mom.
Hello? Hello?
No, fine. We'll go with it.
Instead, with Will Marshall. Will is a former
No.
scientist and the co-founder of Planet Labs, a San Francisco startup
What?
that launched in 2010 and
What?
is now a public company, quoted on the New York Stock Exchange and employing over 1,000 people. Images of the Earth, and then figure out ways of making those images useful for everyone.
Now, sniper?
To collect intelligence, to environmental to hedge funds monitoring global shipping. I've known Will for some years, but the reason to have him on the spillover right now is that the satellite business,
Whoa.
the GDP
Hello?
of space, is on the verge of a transformation. That much is happening. AI is also going to mean multi-vac style supercomputers in space, with potential
Don't worry about
spillovers.
Do you think I can beat these two people, huh? No.
And as I think we're about to find out, Will has an exhilarating way
You can't.
of thinking about these questions.
Got
The
one.
way he frames it, and you'll soon see what he means, we are entering the age of planetary intelligence. Will Marshall, thank you for doing this, and great to have you on the show. Happy to be here. I want to start a bit, Will, by asking you to talk about your early journey. You were British, you still are British, originally British. You did a PhD in physics at Oxford University. Then you joined NASA.
My mic is not working. Hello? You saw that play?
Well, it was really fantastic. I mean, honestly, it was such a childhood dream for me as a space geek. Wanting to
What?
go work at NASA, do space exploration, do science. I spent my time there working on lunar missions. We sent a couple of boats to the moon. We found water on the moon, which is a big deal, and it's very exciting now. Water is really helpful for putting self-sustainable bases on Earth. But you know, the more we looked out, and my co-founder was doing this mission that was looking for planets outside our solar system on exosolar planets, and he found thousands of these planets, but none of them are as beautiful and incredible as this one. And so really, we started
What do you always do, sniper?
using space to help life on Earth, going out to help protect this planet. And what we recognize is a gap of NASA has been doing incredible things, and we learned so much monitoring the Earth, really to take a scientific baseline of how things were changing with Landsat, with weather satellites, and various other things. Develop an understanding of
What?
geology, of space geology,
Wow.
climate science, obviously, and land changes over time.
They are pros.
Fast enough to change human decision making. So there was like awareness, but not inside the decision making loop, inside the OODA loop of human action. We recognized a gap of if we could take an image of the whole Earth every day, then we could see inside human decision making loops and help to
Whoa.
at the end of the year and notice as a big
Since I'm good, you always telling me.
or same with illegal fishing or protecting coral
Wait,
reefs
this
or
guy.
even helping prevent wars.
I was AFK. Right here.
With data that enables us to make smarter decision making all across the globe. And so
No, nigga.
NASA's forte is science and exploration, but this was more like human action and operational impact. It was more business and an impact opportunity than a science. The NASA Center here in Silicon Valley, which helped to birth Silicon Valley, by the way.
Hello?
So we founding team, we left NASA, we got financing here.
Some noobs.
I think it's just worth double clicking on something you just said there, which is that the motivation
Take my map.
for putting satellites
Fuck
up in space, the way you see it, is to protect the planet, to cherish the special uniqueness of this planet since your co-founder inspected the other ones and found they were, didn't support life, were less exciting, and it's just a rather different one to the Elon Musk, hey, if we can be a multi-planetary species and something goes wrong with this planet, no problem, we can go live on Mars or something.
Yeah, well, quite. Look, I mean, all power to them, going to Mars or the moon. This one is the best.
Good job.
And let me just also put in, there's not a place on Mars that's better than the worst place on the Earth. I mean, the Earth is just so much fantastically better planet and more suitable for life. And obviously, maybe long term, we'll send lots of people and other life forms off Earth. In the meantime, almost all of our challenges are here. Almost all the people are going to be here for the foreseeable future, and all the life that we know in the cosmos is here for the foreseeable future. And there's a cosmic significance to taking care of this planet. And
What? No.
you might think going off Earth is like a massive responsibility to take care of the Earth. But it is only through satellites that we have really understood our own planet. It's like you need to go to another country before you understand your own country and have some perspective on it.
Fuck your ass.
You need to go to other planets before you understand your own planet. I mean, it wasn't until we set probes and looked at the runaway greenhouse effect on Venus that we went, holy shit.
Venus, motherfucker. You got Venus. Fuck you.
With Earth imaging satellites and weather satellites that we've underpinned our climate models. It was only with satellites that we found the hole in the ozone layer. It's only with satellites and Apollo missions that we even discovered the Earth, and that's the more philosophical and sort of consciousness-raising piece of it, which may be less tangible. But when humans went to the moon, they didn't find the moon; they discovered the Earth.
Because they look back at Earth, you mean, they
look back at Earth and realize its fragility. They realize, obviously, we were on a planet, but we didn't really sense it viscerally, and they sense it viscerally, and they brought that back. And actually, the blue marble shot is one of the most widely shared pictures ever. I think the most widely, one of the Apollo astronaut shots, and the green movement sort of started in earnest, mainly after that, because people were like, what? And so it wasn't, obviously we knew that before, but visually we became more aware of our planetary neighborhood and consciously aware of it as we went out. So, anyway, that's all to say that space is absolutely critical. Most of the data that underpins our climate models comes from space. Most of the data that underpins our weather models. So it's relevant down here on Earth. It's not an abstract runaway escapism. It is absolutely relevant to taking care of terra firma.
So you co-founded Planet in 2010, and just paint the picture, what was happening in the space industry at that time, which sort of made it a right move?
I mean, we realized that something that was, I think, there was a trend
Well,
of
I'm locking in.
cost of satellites. The most pioneering example was actually in England, Surrey Satellites. They had taken the $1 billion satellite model and taken a couple of zeros off that. But we had worked further at NASA. We had looked at phones and other consumer electronics and said, well, wait a second. If you look at the list of things a satellite has and the list of things a smartphone has, they're pretty aligned, right? You have radios, computers, accelerometers, rate gyros, GPS, you have all of the sensor systems. That's very aligned with what a satellite has. The only thing it doesn't have is solar panels to keep it powered. You have to plug it into the wall. Obviously, that doesn't make sense in space and a lot of other things. But basically, 90% of what you have in a satellite is in a phone. And we were like scratching our heads going, well, this costs $500. Our normal NASA satellites cost $500 million. So what are the extra 6 zeros doing for us? And sorry, satellites have had a tack on that and made some progress. But we think we could go a couple of orders of magnitude further. And we did. And so it was all about what I would call leveraging Moore's law and applying it to space. So taking the fact that billions have been spent on the miniaturization of electronics, of sensors, of computers, and
Go droit.
Actually, Apollo helped to invent the microprocessor because they had to have a computer that Apollo capsule, which wasn't very good at the time, but they had to invent that, and that led to a lot of the birth of modern computing. But still, consequence of that, they've taken a very conservative attitude to what compute systems we put in space. Basically, don't put a computer in space unless we've already tested it in space. Well, that led to a chicken and an egg, and we only kept the very old stuff in space, such that, to give you an example, the last probe on Mars has a 33 megahertz processor. You can't even find one of those. Literally, NASA JPL has to keep a whole line of things open to build those chips.
No, I don't.
And a 2 megapixel camera. And again, much better ones in here.
It was
So
wrong.
we were saying, let's reverse this. NASA was inventing everything as it went. Computing, solar panels, everything, because it had to. We were saying, let's leverage the fact that there's billions of dollars already being spent on the miniaturization of computing and other infrastructure, consumer electronics, and take that to space. That is, strap space to Moore's law.
Half of the insight here is the militarization of consumer electronics. And then the other half, I guess, is SpaceX bringing down the cost of launch so you could actually get the satellites up there.
No, that's a misconception.
Okay.
At least for us, there was nothing to do with how we started. It was exciting. SpaceX was started a couple of years, several years before us, but the launch costs we started were dominated by international launch costs, Soyuz, Indian PSLV, others that were already about $20,000 a kilogram, which SpaceX didn't come to until about 5 years ago, and then they actually dropped it below the international rates. What SpaceX initially did, for the first few years, is just bring US launch costs from being obscenely high, about 20x the international rate, to being about comparable with the international rates. So to start with, we just weren't using SpaceX because they were more expensive. But later on, and in recent times, they have brought the launch costs down below what was the international rates, and they brought them down about 5x.
I see.
That's
Which is a
good
big
bad.
deal, by the way, but it is not nearly as big deal as the 1000x increase in cost performance of every kilogram that you put in the fairing. So what's mainly led to the space boom is not the rockets.
So you found the company, you launch satellites into space, you start collecting gigabytes of images of Earth. So what was your early hypothesis of how these images would be used?
It was both of you,
How did the
huh?
hypothesis differ from what actually turned out?
Yeah, great question. Firstly, quick course correction is about 30 terabytes a day, not gigabytes. So it's about 4,047 megapixel images. To applications, I mean, actually, the applications are roughly how I expected it. I hoped the world would be dealing more with sustainability, so we could get to that in a second, and leveraging our data. The world hasn't turned out to be quite ready for that as yet, although, i.e., we're burying our heads in the sand a little bit. What has turned out though in most applications, and including in that one, and I can give a bunch of examples, is that this drives, the whole thesis underneath Planet was transparency, drives accountability, drives better decision making, right? And that's the case for stopping deforestation, that's the case for war and security situations around the planet, that's the case for insurance, agriculture, what have you. So we thought of a wide range of applications across commercial, civil government, defense and intelligence, and various others, media, NGOs, human rights, think tanks, so on. And all have essentially come to fruition at different speeds and at different value in terms of business, but all are coming to fruition. And we'll get to this, but AI is of course accelerating that, and that's very exciting too. But it's not far off what we predicted. We didn't never had to pivot, so to speak.
So to make this concrete, I think there was a moment on Valentine's Day in 2022 when a
Wow.
pontoon bridge appeared on the border
Yeah,
between
left
Belarus
the
and Ukraine.
chunk.
By spotting that,
Oops.
you actually had an effect on how the world processed what happened next. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, absolutely. This was
Sean.
before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and literally the day before, Putin said, no, I'm just kidding. And we were like, yeah, but clearly a bridge to send troops over to invade. It was one of many things that were amounting to calling bluff on this Putin. Look, the general point is that we were not showing the build-up of troops in the obvious places, which you saw in the press, and a lot of that, if not most
prosecute war crimes, stuff like that.
Absolutely. And food security, the food program used our data to show. A lot of people didn't know this before the war, but I think 40% of the world's poorest countries got their grain from Ukraine. It was like the breadbasket of Europe. That was being sent by the World Food Program to all these countries, Lebanon and many other countries that were benefiting and getting most of their food supply from Ukraine, and then it was suddenly cut off. So they were trying to get that out to not just to feed Ukraine, but to feed all those poor countries. So, as is typically the case, war creates challenges downstream, security challenges, not just physical security, but food security, water security, other security challenges downstream. And our point again is to help those actors make smarter decisions, to get earlier warning, to make smarter decisions. And that's in the security realm, and we could obviously go into concrete cases in other realms, in agriculture, insurance, as you wish.
Right. We'll get there in a second, but. Coming out of Ukraine once the war started allows other countries to understand the scale of adaptation they need to go through to meet that challenge. So there's lots of upsides here, but there can be moments, right, when more information is not. You basically had to stop putting out images of what was going on in the war recently.
Yeah, well, just to be clear, in every case where we've had conflict, we've addressed what would be the right balance between critical things like security of operations. We obviously don't want to put people or civilians in harm's way, and transparency and accountability right? And different needs have different time scales, right? So we have typically put a delay in place, and this was no exception in the war in Iran. And so we did that, and what's important to note is that almost all of our critical clients in the region continue to get access straight away. It's just that data can't be published out in the public domain, because that could then be used by terrorist organizations or proxies or what have you to do what could be bad things. And so that's the reason. It's a tension always, but this was no exception.
Okay, so when you got started, I read somewhere that there were about 950 active satellites in total. By 2022, I picked that date to check because it's before ChatGPT, so we can't ascribe the growth to AI. That number had jumped to almost 7,000. Well, maybe there was AI. Of course, there was AI before ChatGPT, so maybe you'll tell me that growth from 950 to 7,000 was AI related. Anyway, you fast forward another 4 years to today, and there are over 15,000, so it's basically more than doubled in the last 4 years. So you tell me, what's been driving this growth? What's the main reason?
Well, again, I think it's a combination of miniaturization of electronics that has enabled us to do more with less, in a fairing going up. And then this is where SpaceX really comes in, the proliferation of rapid and scalable transportation space at reasonable or cheaper prices. And SpaceX, of course, use that. They dominate that number of 15,000. They've launched over 10,000 satellites themselves. So the majority of theirs, we're in the top 4 or 5 constellations of satellites ourselves. We're the largest Earth imaging one. Most of the others, all the others, are communication fleets. So they are launching Starlink at SpaceX, but there's also OneWeb, and we're the largest Earth imaging satellite fleet with a couple of hundred satellites ourselves. But yeah, the proliferation there is dominated by the fact that this is that threshold of launch costs and satellite costs. You've unlocked different opportunities. So I liken this to the mainframe desktop computers. So we only had computers the size of buildings, and again, Apollo microprocessors unlocked a totally new set of use cases when you could have a computer that's the size of a desktop. Or maybe a room first and then a desktop and then loads of applications. Same is true in space. As you lower that cost, all these other applications, and we'll talk about compute in space, you already hinted at it in the intro, but that one's being unlocked right this second, and that's why that's going to be a big new thing. But basically, as you bring those satellite costs down and launch costs down, these things unlock.
Okay, great. So let's get to the heart of the matter now. So the number of satellites is already growing fast, but it's about to grow a heck of a lot faster because of AI. And that's because, first of all,
Guys, bye. I'm gonna play with that. This guy.